Beyond the Devil's Teeth. Well, I suppose it was a million years ago now, but I was in my early 20s, and I had done a lot of traveling. I had kind of been obsessed with traveling pretty roughly through West Africa and East Africa and Latin America, the jungle, the Amazon, and India as well. And all I knew was that I wanted to write a book. I went on about it obsessively. I told everyone I met that I was going to write a book and it was going to be fabulous and everyone would have to buy it. And finally the day came and I started planning it. I didn't really know what to do. I just knew if I could keep writing and I could fill maybe 500 pages with writing, that I'd be onto something good. So I beavered away at it through January and February. I remember it was freezing cold and I didn't even have a computer or a typewriter or anything. I had to borrow one from a friend, but I could only borrow that friend's computer, which was complete crap, in the evenings, very late at night. So I'd have to go over to their house, and while they were watching TV, soap operas, I'd hammer away at their crappy computer. Then got the thing written. I was really proud of it, and I called it In Gondwanaland, and all I talked about was in Gondwanaland and how fantastic it was, and nobody listened. I tried to get an agent and nobody listened, couldn't get an agent. Tried to get a publisher, nobody listened, couldn't get a publisher. Tried to get hype, couldn't get any hype. And I was going really crazy because I had this manuscript in a sort of black bin liner that I schlepped around, and I kept mailing copies of it, printing out copies, which was so expensive, and then mailing them to people who really didn't want them. Then I had a couple of ideas. The first idea was that if I could get a little bit of attention from some people who are quite famous, I might be able to get the book to an agent who might prick up their ears. So what I did was I printed out loads and loads and loads of copies, and did that because Rachna was working at a publishing company in the West End, and I got her to use their printer, which is one of those pretty fancy laserjet printers. So she printed out a gazillion copies of the manuscript, and I sent them around to billions of people, I think also using the franking machine at Rachna's publishing company. Oops. But I needed to, because I didn't have anything, I didn't have any means at the time. So I sent these to all kinds of people. I sent them the copies to famous people, people I could find in Who's Who, people like Henry Kissinger and most of the living former presidents of the United States, some of whom wrote back very sweet letters, including President Carter. Kissinger wrote back a very sweet letter, and to lots of writers. And I did what people do to me sometimes now, which is to write incredibly fabulously friendly letters, but just flattering letters. That's the key thing. And I'm not the biggest author in the world, but I now get, right there on that screen over there, I get emails throughout the day and the night. And if they flatter me from the first line and call me fabulous, wonderful names, then I'm much more likely to help them. And that's the God's honest truth. If people come in with a bitchy line of criticism from the first line, it's very easy for me just to press this highlight button here and then delete, which I often do. Anyway, so flattery will get you everywhere. And that's what I knew would work for me. So I've got a whole load of quotes from fabulously famous people, including a lot of famous travel writers and explorers and anyone I could think of. And I didn't have an agent because I couldn't get an agent. So what I did was I got Rachna to design me a fantastic letterheading called Worldwide Media. And I started my own agency. I called myself William Watkins, and William Watkins had a deep, husky voice, and hey, talk like this. And he was a fantastic agent, and he only had one client, and it was me. And the client only had one book, which was Beyond the Devil's Teeth, which had a name change in order to gather new momentum. So I sent out the manuscript wrapped in these incredibly waxing lyrical quotes from famous people, some of them more famous than others. And I sent it to lots and lots and lots of publishers. And none of them responded. And I got all depressed and I went into a big, slumpy, gloomy heap under my duvet for a long time. And then one morning, the phone rang. And it was the editor from a very, very big publisher called Orion, and the editor there at the imprint called Weidenfeld and Nicholson said she was interested in talking to William Watkins. So I pretended to be an intern manning the switchboard, and as soon as she asked for William Watkins, I put her on hold for a moment, made myself a cup of tea, came back, because William Watkins, of course, is a very busy man, put on a deep, husky voice, and I negotiated for her to meet William Watkins' star client, Tahir Shah. And she said to me, I remember, Mr. Watkins, would it be possible for you to accompany Mr. Shah to the meeting? And I said, Madam, that would be distinctly impossible, I'm afraid. And I went by myself. Then on the back of that, I got a deal for my second book, which was called Sorcerer's Apprentice, and I'll tell you about that in another film.